What's up, everyone? It's your boy Freeze coming at you with the premiere video. Uh, and I'm gonna go ahead and start off and say that I am traveling this week, and now I just found out that I'm gonna be traveling next weekend as well. So I had to pre-record this content that would normally have on my stream this week. Um, just a lot of different family matters going on, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But anyway, today we are going to be talking about the new combiner. So, for those of you on the Decepticon side, we are getting Dinoking, and those on the Autobot side are getting Raiden, and should be available for the event next weekend. So, we'll talk about that a little bit, see what's what. And then I also want to talk a little bit about some ideas that have come about for Cyclonus and the Autobot counterpart, who is obviously Powerglide, and see what kind of changes we need to make him into a viable, just a viable bot. You know, the Legacy patch has been one of my favorite projects over the last, well, this year and last year. And really just looking for ideas. So I'll tell you some of the ideas that came up in playtest. Um, and then hopefully we can get something rolling when Dale comes back from his vacation and start actually putting together something that we can test. And I also want to talk a little bit about some of the changes to quality of life that have been happening in the game. Some of them haven't been advertised as well as they should have been, so definitely want to talk about those as well. But before we get into any of that, let's go take a week at this week's. Let's go take a look at this week's newsletter. This weekend's events called No Fate is week 2 of the saga, and this was supposed to be a 500k alliance totalizer for prime shards, and woke up this morning ready to play the game. Like I said, I'm traveling this morning, so I want to try to get my hits in early, and woke up to several pings in the Transformers Earth Wars Discord saying that the event was changing. So once they tried to change the event crashed. So I'm still actually at the time of this recording, I was still waiting on the game to get started back up. It's been a little over an hour. So at the time of this recording, don't know what the event's gonna be. Don't know. I think the prizes are gonna remain close to the same. I'm actually trying to log in right now. It looks like I actually got back into the game. So let's take a look and see. So it looks like the prizes. So it looks like the prizes are going to 35k. Yeah, it looks like we get prizes until 35k, and then it goes unlimited after that. So I don't know. I'll get to it when I start playing it. But it's regular battle zones, and then some game updates and information. Let's see. Okay, so they did actually put the Z Energon. So Z Energon is in the Sanic store. So that's cool. I actually talk about that a little bit later on. That's going to be permanent. And let's see. Premium character shards. We got Metal Hawk and Bomb Burst, Tasmania Kid and the Antagonist, Orion Pax and D16. So, yeah, and those on the G1 cores also drop from the G1 core chips. And then they start talking about what's coming in 2025. So I guess they get ready to have their talk with Hasbro. But they want us to have a survey. So survey winners can get a chance to win 500 5-star shards. And they just want to know what you think. You know, they're trying to prepare for the new year and give us some stuff that we want. So make sure you fill out that survey. I haven't done mine yet. So I'll do that after I get done with this video. All right, got some spooky skin packs for Ghost Alpha Trion and Starscream, part of, obviously Halloween is coming up. So those look pretty cool. And then with the saga schedule, so we got a new combiner event obviously Prime Core shards this week. Um and then we get the new combiner event next week. And I'm interested to see how this goes. Not a lot of information on how we can actually acquire these new combiners. I'll talk about that later on. I kind of imagine that it's going to be over the course of several events, so we'll see how that goes. The Mayhem individual leaderboard, honestly, not my event and not my type of event because, when you got guys getting 400K to get the top prize so they get the BBE and everything, those binary bonds, and I was actually talking with some teammates this morning. And I get there's an exclusivity period on everything, but we're talking about a percentage change on combats. And I know the last leaderboard event, it took over 100K individually just to get the 5-star combat, which, I'm not mad at that. I'm not putting up 100K just to go get a 5-star combat. Uh, I've been saving my combat chips. I'll just go get them that way. Now, usually I'll get them the first day they come out at this point because I haven't been spending them. So we'll see how that goes. But shout out to anybody who does actually want to com- compete in that. Let's see, scheduled for another Prime Shard Totalizer, and then week 6 is when we're supposed to get Powerglide and Cyclonus during the Legacy event. So I feel like right now is the time to start planning this out so we can make him into a good bot. Uh, Small event for Thanksgiving, and then we got the endurance event. So we'll see what this what this particular saga brings. The last saga was pretty good for me, and hopefully this is the same. Be sure to check out all of your content creators. Obviously the official ones, myself, Soldier, and Sunstreak Waza. Um, these guys all make a lot of really good content. I try to watch Waza, every week during their stream. I was just watching his yesterday. And then Soldier, one of the, at least for me, one of the pioneers of when I got into content. So make sure you check those guys out. And make sure you check out your unofficial content creators as well. So if you guys got channels out there, make sure you leave the information for everyone in the chat. All right, community corner. We got a Nemesis Prime here. That's pretty cool. Cool artwork as always. All right, some bug fixes and information. So apparently Cheetor and Black Arachnia's Transmetal were not healing. They said they can confirm that the healing does work. They got reports of that. Let's see, Jetfire and Starscream's damage and ability 11 have been fixing. The fire portion wasn't working. And then be on the lookout for Space Apes Team Stream on the 13th of November. So I'm sure people will have a lot of questions for that. Let's see. That's going to line up. And that'll probably line up doing a pretty easy week. It'll be after the Mayhem event. And that's all we get for the news this week. So let's go ahead and I'm just gonna go ahead and start out by checking out that new combiner. So I wanted to take a look at the newest combiners that are coming to the game, and I know everybody's been really excited for them. So we're gonna be taking a look at for us on the Decepticon side, we're going to get Dino King. Now, obviously, as you can see, Dino King is not pictured. We do not have the artwork and playtest for Dino King yet. But what we do have on pictured is actually going to be your Autobot version, which is going to be Raiden. And I'll actually go through the transformation real quick. So for those of you on the Autobot side, you can see what that looks like. And I believe these are coming from the Victory continuity, so these are the train bots that they have on the Autobot side. And overall, looks pretty good. Now, obviously, anytime that we get new content in the game, everybody's super excited to find out what it does and if it's any good or not. So I'm early in my stages of testing with this one. Had a couple of little problems with the server, with the playtest server, which is why I wasn't able to make any videos last weekend. Everything that I was making was dependent on using the playtest server, so apologies for that. But let's go ahead. We will go over to the battlefield and we'll take a look and see what's what with this new combiner. Actually, before we go to the battlefield, I want to take a look at some of the base stats. And so here, what we're showing is the health and the damage for this particular combiner. Like I said, we don't have the imaging for Dino King yet, but Dino King and Raiden are supposed to have equal stats. And so when I look at the health and the damage, and I go compare it, it looks like, at least for right now in playtest, they got them the same as God Neptune, and for the health and damage, it seems like we're kind of at the top spot now. What I'm looking at here is the 5-star version. There's 4 different abilities. Now, I will say in playtest, we don't always update the tooltips right away, so I'm not going to show the tooltips right this second. What I've done instead is I've actually got a graphic that I built myself that has the more current versions of the each ability. So you get a 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star ability. And I'm not sure yet, and I did ask Callum, as did a couple of other people. I asked him in the playtest chat what the deal is. Like, how do we get these bots if we're just gonna just start off with a 2-star, 3-star this event, and we're waiting for them to get all these additional levels through events? I'll imagine that's gonna be the case. So, but new content, we can see where we're at with it right now as the each version 2, 3, 4, and 5-star. So let's go ahead, get them on to, well, let's go take a look at that graphic before we go put them on the battlefield. As far as the abilities go, there has been a little bit of confusion between the 2 different combiners between the factions. Um, so on the Decepticon side, our tooltips aren't updated. So we'll just go through the abilities real quick. I made this graphic, and I'm going to make this available to everyone on my Discord server. If you haven't joined, be sure to do that. The link for it is in the description of this video. So we'll start with the 2-star ability, and it's called Star Shower. And what it is going to be, it's actually pretty interesting. It fires a barrage of bullets, dealing X amount of DPS for 10 seconds. So the bullet damage is going to increase by 2% whenever the combiner is damaged in this state. So when you're using that ability, any damage it takes is going to gradually increase the damage that he produces by 2%. It's going to go, it was at 20%. Now it goes all the way up to 30%. So we'll take a look at that on the battlefield in a little bit. And the 3-star ability is called Break Zone. And so that's going to be kind of your rush ability. You're going to jump into an area dealing X amount of DPS. After that, it's going to cast a zone that's going to deal some damage as well. But the key thing here that I like is that it nullifies healing, and it also slows down enemies by 80% for 15 seconds. So for me, that's actually could potentially be a good defensive ability. Now keep in mind, when this was sent to us in playtest, the idea was that this is going to be a defensive style combiner. So I look at this as something that could potentially be a defensive ability. We'll try that out here in a little bit as well. Now the 4-star ability is called Kingly Call. For you on the Autobot side, I believe it's called Last Call. And what it's supposed to do is it's going to be kind of like an enemy taunt. And this is also what seems like could be a decent defensive ability. It says grant yourself 50% damage reduction and element immunity for 10 seconds. Now, the after death effect is going to be giving that same 50% damage reduction and element immunity to your. If you're on offense, it'll be to your ally bots. If you're on defense, then it'll be to the defenses around you. So when I see something like this, I'm thinking it's going to be something similar to what we have with Galvatronus and Sky Rain. So that's what I'm going to be looking for when I test it on defense. And then finally, once we get to that point, that 5-star ability is going to be called Extinction. And so you're going to fire 5 exploding energy spheres that deal damage to enemies as well as marks them. So the marked enemies are going to be executed. And I noticed that Space Ape is they like those execution abilities. I mean, it's okay. I think for a 5-star, it's like, hey, if you get it down to a certain percentage, then they'll just completely be destroyed. But I have to see more of it in action to see how that works. So that seems more like an offensive ability to me. So with all that said, let's go over to the battlefield. Take a look at these in action on offense. All right, so what I want to actually do is I'm going to look at each of the abilities one by one, just to see how they actually are working. I'm going to try a couple of battles against my good friend from playtest, certainly. And I just really just want to get a good idea how some of this stuff works. Like I've been looking at it, but I say, I got two priorities when I test. And the first is to make sure that everything actually works properly. The second thing is to make sure that it's properly balanced for the meta. So I'm actually going to start off with the 3-star ability Break Zone so that I can get a little bit of a rush. Now keep in mind, and you can see some of the numbers on the screen for how much uh, damage we're looking at right now in playtest. I didn't add that. Didn't add values, but because they're going to change per level. But I really like that animation there, and I'm kind of curious about the area. It looks like it does stop the healing pretty well. But that's kind of my problem with that one. With that one, when you think about using an ability like this one, and I'm gonna actually go to its tooltip because I think that one's actually written on there properly. When I go use an ability like that, let me actually go find them first. When I use an ability like that one, if I'm rushing into an area, you want to have some sort of protection. Now, when I look at an ability like this one, when you talk about you're going to do some anti-heal, offensively at least, when you're going to do some anti-heal, typically you're talking about going to shield generator clusters. You're talking about places where it's some of the highest concentrations of DPS that you have in the game. So from an offensive standpoint, this is going to be tough to use because first off, I didn't notice the slowdown working at all. And then the other thing is, if the slowdown was working, depending on how that area is set up, personally, I was leaning more towards having everything he touches, everything in his path, have a slowdown, so then he's not getting shot at from behind. Then that would address his survivability. But since it doesn't seem to be working at all, which I definitely need to make note of and give that feedback to Space Ape, um, that could have an effect on this. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna try it in a different battle. I'll just go into a prime zone battle real quick because he got shredded fighting up against a tougher opponent. So here I got a I got an alchemist core here. So let me run over, see if I can. So the healing is stopped, and I need to actually. The healing is stopped, but I can't really gauge. I can't really gauge when all the healing started up again. So I can't really gauge that particular zone that they're talking about. So, mm, offensively, and I know they wanted to be a defensive combiner. I'm not sure that's the one for what it is I would try to do on offense. So I had to try it again on defense and see what happens. All right, so let's try again. We'll move on to the next ability. Now this time around, I'm actually going to deploy my bots before the combiner, and I'm doing that because I want to see how one of his ability works. So in this case, someone run the 2-star ability first, and I want to see, like, as he's taking damage, how the damage, and you can actually, it looks like the damage is increasing a little bit. Um, this doesn't look like something particular I want to use. As a matter of fact, he got wiped out while using that ability. So I'm gonna actually come back again and I'm gonna try this one again. So definitely not starting off with that ability. So we'll go back and keep it consistent. I'll fight my buddy Certainly again. Now try to attack from the same way. Because what I'm seeing is you're definitely not leading off with that. But I'm gonna drop my bots again in this corner. And then I'll drop Dinoking. And I'm gonna rush him up a little bit more this time. So one thing I'm looking for here is with this 2-star ability, or this 3-star ability, excuse me, seeing if it slows down anything, which it doesn't look like it has. Now, this tooltip is the one that I was saying was wrong. It's saying that he's supposed to actually do a taunt. But that taunt, and I'm going to go back to that graphic slide for a second. Because that taunt is supposed to do a damage reduction, which it looks like it did, and some elemental immunity. So I'm going to go back and I want to look for that elemental immunity. So it looked like it might have did a little bit of damage decrease, so that's good. But when I'm looking at it and I look at a combiner like Galvatronus and Skyrain, and actually, as a matter of fact, while we were talking about it, let's go look at their tooltips. And there's actually a chart that my buddy from Cicada, my buddy from Playtest Cicada made. And I'm going to actually put that in the link to this video as well as on my Discord. So if you hadn't joined, make sure you join that. So that you can, I got a library for all this stuff so people can know what's what. So when I look at this ability, the Kingly Call, well, I can't look at that one because I said that's not the correct tooltip. But if I look at it as a 50% reduction and elemental immunity for 10 seconds, and then on death, you pass that on to your bots. Now, when I go look at, and let me go find him real quick. There he is, Galvatronus. And I go look at his 4-star ability, the Black Hole. You know, Skyrain for you guys on the Autobot side. One of the things he does, he actually does more. He does 6 times damage to walls. That's good. And you know, you don't use walls as much as we used to, but that's good. But then Galvatronus becomes completely invulnerable to all damage for 10 seconds. So we got 50% for this new combiner. I suspect that most people are going to continue to use Galvatronus because he's invulnerable. And then again, when you look at his ability, his after death effect is going to be Once you activate it, that all the allies will receive 80% damage reduction for 10 seconds. So now Galvatronus is getting more damage protection because he's going to be invulnerable. And then on top of that, his team is going to get 80%, which honestly, in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty huge. So while that ability does work, and many of the playtesters are already suggested, man, bump this up some. It's gotta, we always say it, we always talk about new content being better. Well, this is clearly something that it doesn't compare. Like I said, shout out to Jacado with PPX. I'm going to share his chart in my Discord and in this video. But what I want to do is I want to give them the bots the opportunity. I want to give them the opportunity to see what they look like with this 50% reduction. So that's supposed to be this ability. I'll use that a little bit later on. Like I said, I'll rush back up here to this corner, and then I'll try to throw that ability down. See if I can protect him a little bit. I mean, he's still taking quite a bit of damage. But he's dealing out a decent amount. I think he might be dealing out too much damage. Now carry him back up here, but he's just about gone right now. Like, I know for a fact the Galvatronus would have survived that. But now let's look at my bots down here on the bottom. I mean, they're not getting hit by a lot. And they also got a lot of healing going on over there. But I'm not quite sold on if that's a damage reduction. That's going to take me some more testing. But yeah, overall, I'm just not really super satisfied with it on offense. Now, keep in mind, it's not supposed to be an offensive combiner, so I think it might be beneficial for me to try it out on defense. Obviously, and unfortunately, it's going to allow me to not test it as much on off. It's not, as much on offense, primarily because he's going to have to sit in the beacon. Luckily, I'm traveling all day Friday, so maybe by the time I get settled in, it'll be about this time uh, when the video gets released. So I'll be ready to test on offense again. But this is one of the things I feel like they need to fix in playtest. Like when I use this 5-star ability, and I'm moving on to a different topic, but when I use this 5-star ability, I didn't destroy anything. It's like, hey, it's only going to do that if it's 15% or below. So that makes that kind of subpar because it's only doing 1.8k, to those enemies. So you have to go catch something that's already weakened. Now I could see that being effective on like a shield cluster on offense, but you got to get there first, as we discussed earlier with, I think it was this ability, is letting them take too much damage. And we're already in the second iteration of this thing, so fingers crossed we can make something out of this one. But I think since it's a defensive combiner, we need to go ahead and try it on defense. So let's go ahead and switch over to defense. So the next test I'm going to run is going to be on defense. Unfortunately, that's going to limit some of my offensive testing for the next day, which is fine because by the time you guys are watching this, I'll actually be in South Carolina. Got a family birthday going on for my wife's aunt, so she'll be celebrating 70 years of life. So I'll be doing that, which is one of the reasons why I am doing a premiere video as opposed to a live stream this week. It's been busy, man. I actually got a funeral to go to the following week. My best friend's father died. Rest in peace, Mr. Anthony. But yeah. So I'm gonna have to do a couple of videos for a little bit. but I'll still be engaged for the most part. Um, with all that said, this is the one that I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on break zone a little bit. Um, the key thing I want to look at here, is it's supposed to nullify healing. Now, I already showed on offense that it's not really working with the slowdown. At least it doesn't appear to be working. I'm definitely adding that to my feedback. But what I found out is, so I had some problems earlier, as you could see, trying to go do a a trial run on the test server. And apparently, if you drop the combiner first, it makes the game crash. So I'm not gonna do that. But what I do want to focus on here is to see if the healing is working. Probably the anti-heal, I should say, is working properly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop my entire team right here in front of the combiner outpost. And that team is still healing. So that's got to be fixed. Um, and it actually took the combiner down quite quickly. Um, and this is the stuff that I talk about in playtest. It becomes really, really difficult to manage. Like, we started out, a couple of days behind for most of us because we got a lot of new testers, so they had to get their accounts right. For me personally, getting the combiner crashed my game. And when you are running a business and and they just hand us the content Friday right before they go home, and I know what time it was because it was about, eh, where I live is about 1 o'clock p.m. So if they over in the UK, it's, I believe, 5 hour time difference right now. Um, for them, it's 5, it's 6 o'clock. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5 hour difference right now. I know our our daylight savings time schedules is different. I believe Waza was talking about that yesterday. But one thing I don't like, there was a point in time in playtest where they go stream about something and then they release it to playtest after the stream, so that way you don't have to worry about any playtest leaks and stuff. That shouldn't be something you have to worry about anyway, but unfortunately it does happen. And so then that's when we would start testing. What that allowed us to do is for stuff not to be broken that following day. So I had to wait like 3 days to get the bots or to get the combiners because the game was crashing and it's the weekend. So if it seems like that's why I hadn't got to test it too much and I'm testing it a lot now, that's why. But this ability is not nullifying healing, and it doesn't appear to be slowing anybody down either. So I'm going to try the next ability. Now, keep in mind, the ability Kingly Call, this is the tooltip that I have. I already showed you what the tooltip is supposed to be. Just for memory's sake, this actually is supposed to be the one that taunts enemies nearby, and it's supposed to grant you a 50% damage reduction and element immunity. So, the way this was described to us is that the element immunity, that element immunity is supposed to essentially not stop damage from whatever it's coming from, but if it has an elemental effect, say you have something that has fire or acid, that effect is not supposed to work. So now, and I forgot, can't remember if I don't think I changed the ability. I want to change the ability to Kingly Call and see what kind of effect that has. Now, I will admit, the test that I'm doing, I'm putting 8 bots against one, so uh, obviously, they're going to dominate most combiners like that. But I tell you who they wouldn't dominate, and I'm going to go back for a second. You know who they don't dominate those first few seconds? Is the bot that everybody already uses, and that's Galvatronus. And I might have mentioned it earlier. I actually stopped recording for a little bit because I got a little bit frustrated with just how hard I had to fight just to get the things to work properly. But all in all, this guy's invulnerable for 10 seconds. Where we're talking about giving a 50% damage reduction for 10 seconds. Uh, Playtester said that. I watched Waza stream earlier. Waza said that, and all of these guys are correct. Not to mention the fact that the after death effect gives your bots 80% damage reduction for 10 seconds. So when you look at this combiner, and he's giving 50% to damage reduction. He's giving 50% to his team that's surrounding him, his bots that's surrounding him. It just doesn't compare, and that's if it works properly. Period. So that's what I want to take a look at. My priorities when I'm testing are always A, to make sure that it's working properly, and B, to make sure that it works with the current meta. So here, I'm going to drop my bots again, and let's see if it's any faster this time. So and it's kind of tough to tell because he's already got the little shield down here that is not supposed to be a shield. So yeah, it's taking a little bit more time to take him down, but nothing crazy. So just just for shits and giggles, let's go ahead, and so we got a Nemesis Prime here. Let's see which one is he. He's this one. Let's move him out front. We'll move him out front. We'll move one other item. We'll move this build bot. We'll move one other item so he'll have something to attach himself to. Who else I got in these outposts? Let's see. So let's try this. Let's try to move, and we'll move run him up. So essentially, we got Hot Rod and Red Alert here in the front. So let's try to base trial again and see how he holds up with a little bit of support. Now you got two guys that are gonna be invulnerable sitting there in the front. And then on top of that, the combiner is going to take reduced damage. So let's see how that plays out. So right now, really, nobody should really be taking any damage on the defensive side. The only one that is really taking damage is the combiner. Now it is slower now, but I'm not using any abilities. I'm not doing anything. So let's throw a little bit of Rodimus Unicronus in there, some Inferno for you guys on the Autobot side. And so I'll say the 4-star ability Kingly Call, it does seem to be working properly. But the tooltip's still wrong. So this 4-star ability is working properly. Now, this extinction one, I don't really see that as a defensive ability, but I am curious, so I'm gonna go ahead and add it anyway to see. And I'm probably gonna have to make a little cluster here in the front to see how he's gonna operate in that cluster. So let me switch it to that one. And now go back over there so you can see I switched it to extinction. So the enemies are going to be executed once their health is below 15% or below. Now, the cool part about this, as I understand it, and I'm not sure how accurate it is because I hadn't personally tried it, but supposedly this particular ability is supposed to last the duration of the battle. So anytime as soon as they go below 15%, they will be destroyed, supposedly. So I want to check that out. But at the end of the day, honestly, that's a lot. That's a lot to have to wait until they get down to exactly 15%. But I am curious. So I'm going to set my base back up as normal. And I am going to, let's see, I think what I want to do, let me let a couple of my tanks down and see what happens. So they should take some damage. All right, so now they've all been tagged. Now let's see if somebody gets down. Well, they all got tagged, but it didn't seem like it executed the bots. It didn't seem like they executed the bots on defense. It seemed like they just naturally just lit their. Let me look at that again. It seemed like the bots just kind of naturally just wore down. But it didn't seem like after they lost 85% of their health, like they just died or anything. So is this even working on defense? Honestly, it's the question. Like when I've seen other abilities like that, when I've seen like say like a Scylla or Aerial, that ability works. I've seen it work. So when you think this should be something similar, it's just not cutting it. We can put a gunner down as well. Now just zoom in some. Yeah, right now they should be targeted. And like Bludgeon's all the way down, but he's holding on. You know, I've got Barrow. This is I believe Jay's yeah, I think it's Jay's is on him. Barrow combat. So he holds on. That doesn't look like that's working as well. So all in all, I'm not really overly impressed at where we're at with the combiner. I mean, I do want to, I do want to work this stuff out and hopefully make it good. But at the end of the day, we got a week, or yeah, we got a week before this is released into the game, and and this is the second iteration. Uh, you know, and talking with the playtest was talking to Space Ape earlier today, and it's like, hey, we're not really willing to make any huge changes. You know, they don't want to do anything that changes functionality too much. So it seems like we might be limited at this point to some point value tweaks, but they did buff some of this stuff, but it still falls well short of what we have for some of the other combiners. Like I said, I do get a chart that I want to share. As a matter of fact, let me go get that chart out so we can see what we're talking about. Well, let me make sure it's updated first, and then I'll share that chart. Yeah, so actually the chart didn't have it had a lot of good information, but it didn't have exactly what I was looking for in this particular case. Um, some I'm gonna see about maybe adding on to that a little bit. So hopefully I'll have that for my next stream. But what I was looking at is the damage that's caused by actual abilities. And to be honest with you, it does fall short. I already gave you a couple of examples where it falls short. But there's one more thing that's really been somewhat bothering me about this combiner, and it has more to do with how the game is being managed. So we're trying to figure out, like, hey, what do all we have to do to get this combiner? And team has not disclosed that information yet. Um, you know, I asked, some testers asked, a lot of players asked, and now rumors are starting to fly around, and I don't know how true it is. So if you do have the answer to this, let me know in the chat. But there's a rumor going around that players will eventually get this combiner in the Shanix store. Now, let's go take a look. Let me see if I can actually do that on the playtest server. Like, I know we got Shanix store, but I don't think. Alright, so let's see. Shanix store. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because the last time we had anything in the Shanix store as like a 5-star, it was your 5-star uh, Optimus Primal and Beast Wars Megatron, and it was like 50k Shanix, which honestly these days it shouldn't be too hard to get, but it does take a little bit of modest effort. Now that brings me to a deeper point, and that point is if the rumor was true. And like I said, I might have just missed it. Like I went back and looked at the part of the Space Ape stream, and I didn't see anything about it being offered. All I saw was an announcement, and this is why I honestly, until we're ready to go and start testing and start having some information, I actually hate just this is an announcement. I hate it because questions fly, rumors fly, all these things start flying around. But if this was going to come into the Shanix store, and I was talking about this on Discord for those of you who are on my Discord. If not, it's a good time to join. The information for that is in the description of this video, and also usually I have it on my screens when I'm closing the video as well. But if this was became a Shanix spot, so obviously you're going to have the events. I would imagine there's probably going to be a 3-star and a 4-star. Um, they'll be available during events. Eventually, the 5-star will probably be available during some sort of major event. You know what? That's protocol, not a problem. Um, now, I don't know if there's any plans to go do bots, individual bots. If they do individual bots, that could present another challenge. Technically, both factions have 6 pieces to go to this, so that could become a factor. But then I started looking at patterns, and I always try to get people, and this is why I started a library on Discord and stuff like that, because people need to be able to just quick glance go look at some of this stuff. But I was on Discord and I was saying to the guys, there's going to be a multiple layers. So say you have to do multiple events to get to 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, so on and so forth. I'd imagine they probably do 3 and 4 in the same event, and then 5-star probably be a completely separate event that's going to be larger. But then that leaves the question, all right, well, how do you get it next? Usually there's a huge gap, and then he might be available for 5-star shards. And if I remember correctly, when they did one for Overlord, that was a lot of shards. I want to say, don't give me the line. I want to say it was what 15k 5-star shards for Overlord or something like that. So I don't know if it'll be in that ballpark range. It's easier to get 5-star shards than it used to be. Um, but I do find it interesting. And one of the things that's going to actually be a good segue into the next topic that I talk about. But there's been a lot of quality of life stuff that's been getting passively kind of added. Some of it was been advertised, some of it hasn't been advertised. But they just gave away some 5-star shards. A lot of people probably already spent those 5-star shards, but I always find it, well, didn't give away. I say they put them up for sale where you could get like 5,000 5-star shards for from the stores, from the in-game store and from the web store. And I kind of wonder if they were saying, hey, if you hold on to those 20k shards, that could be what you could use for your Dino King down the road, or for your Raiden down the road. I'm just speculating. Nobody's actually said that, but I always find it suspicious where they give you good value on a bundle for that cheap. So I'm kind of keeping my ear to the ground for that. But the other thing I was thinking about, so different ways that we've gotten combiners. We've had to get all of the bots, so we could just have to go get all 6 bots, which they hadn't put any of these bots in any event in any batch. You know, it's not none of them are going to be the next endurance bot or anything. So I'm starting to wonder, well, how will be the alternate ways to get this combiner? And so I made a list and I said, well, you'll have to do the events. Now we have the web store, so there's a good chance that if you want the combiner, it'll be an option in the web store to just buy the combiner. You know, that seems to be commonplace these days. You might have to wait. And the thing is, if it becomes available for 5-star shards, it's not going to be something they offer right away. I don't think so, at least. Now, they'll offer the option to go buy it in the web store right away. I believe that. But there's no chance that you can just go save up your 5-star shards and just go get it later. I don't see that as being an option, at least not right away. It honestly, if I had to guess, I'd say it probably take about a year and maybe about 8 months, 9 months. By the time the next combiners get ready to come out, they'll probably let you get this one. Um, and then after all of that, if there was an option to pay Shanix, which by the way, people ask this on stream all the time if they plan on putting anything else in the Shanix store. The answer is always I'm paraphrasing, but the answer is usually no. They don't have any plans to do that. Doesn't mean it won't never happen, but there were no plans to put something else in the Shanix store in terms of a bot, a combiner, anything like that. So to be honest with you, I don't know how we're gonna get this thing. I'm kind of over it for 1 week. I'm gonna move on from it. But let me know in the comments what you think, or let me know in the chat what you think about the newest combiner and what you've seen from him so far. I know a lot of you guys watch Waza and now watching mine's. Uh, what do you think based off of what you've seen so far? Now, so I wanted to talk quality of life for a little bit because I've been noticing a lot of little small changes with the game. So this is actually last week's newsletter that I'm looking at. And I want to point out a couple of things because it seems like either one or two things is going on. Either the game is trying to attract a lot of new players and entice them to stay in the game, which um, I know that has been a point of emphasis for Space 8. And some things that I've noticed, and I just want to go back to last week's newsletter because I didn't get the stream last week because the server was all messed up. But now, like, this is one thing that I noticed: Cyberpass boost. So there's always been encouragement to go buy on the web store. I've already spoken about that on previous live streams. On I use the web store um, when I go make my purchases because I like getting the additional stuff that comes with it. Like I said, I use like a different card. I don't use my actual credit card on it, but um, yeah. So you're getting extra loyalty points, and they're starting you off with 200 Cyber Pass points. This is something that if you aren't spending on this bundle or spending on this Cyber Pass every month, like most of us are, but for those that are strictly like absolutely 100% free to play, maybe this will be some encouragement. Hey, we're going to give you some extra stuff if you go use the web store. Maybe not. So I noticed that. And then I look down and I say Dino Gate bundles return, but they've been becoming more frequent lately. And for those of you who are not familiar with Dino Gate, um, it started off as like a huge mistake where uh, it was one of the holiday bundles you're supposed to be able to get. you can get all of the parts, for like Volcanicus. And what happens is a lot of people get a lot of duplicates. So you have people that are buying hundreds of these bundles and just getting lots of 5-star shards. They had to do refunds and stuff. But they said, hey, this turned into a thing that was really popular. So they start giving out, they let you buy four total. And they let you buy one for each faction, one bundle, and then you can buy one for each faction on the web store too. So these are starting to come back more frequently, and what that's going to allow newer players to do is it's going to allow them to get 4 stars faster, get more bots, and then as they start to get those duplicates, they'll start to get 4-star shards that turn into 5-star shards as they get their duplicates. Then I looked at the fact that they were changing some stuff in support. They got like a little AI bot down there. I look at the wiki pretty frequently. So I said, okay, that's cool. Even though some people are going to find it impersonal, um, you know, um, it kind of helps expedite some stuff a little bit because let's be honest, and I'm gonna go back to the game for a second. There are some things that people ask that you know, can easily be explained in the wiki. There's some things, and I actually just on Discord, for those of you on my Discord server, I just say, hey man, y'all gotta stop sending me PMs about everything because, you know, honestly, I'm busy. Like, it's times that I'm sitting there making content, and guys just want to update on something or another, and I was like, look, man, I'm making content, or like, so I was just like, so just bear with me. But I imagine Space Ape gets a lot of that too. I imagine Support Team gets a lot of that too. And if they can find a way to slow down on all the tickets that they get, then that's a good thing to have the AI bot to just like point you in the right direction. I wish I had, uh, well, I have AI bots on my server. I wish I had the same one they had on the wiki to answer some of the more commonly asked questions. But all that said, quality of life is improving, particularly if you're a new player. Um, and there was one particular bundle that went on last weekend, and I can't remember exactly what was in it. It was so attractive to me, and that's why I wanted to actually stream that last weekend. Let me see if I can find that one while I'm scrolling through here. But yeah, like it was like called like the Grand Prix bundle or something. So I'm actually going to just search through the bundle updates in my Discord, and it doesn't look like they put a bundle. They didn't make an update last week. It didn't look like. Nope, I don't see it in there. But that one was really good. But then I noticed that these resource fields. Now, granted, a lot of people were talking about this last week, and they still aren't cheap, but they are reasonable. Like somebody might actually go, especially new players, when you get your coins and stuff. You might spend on this. I wouldn't, but you can use that. And yeah, it's not letting me do it because I'm on a test server. It's talking about storage, but oh, it actually might be talking about it because I'm already pretty full. But this wasn't it wasn't a great ad, but it's something to encourage it. Like nobody was buying that in the past, so I saw that as a quality of life thing. And then I started looking at other little small stuff. Oh, here's another one that people have been excited about lately. Before I move on, another one that people were excited about was that Z Energon is back into the Shannick store. And well, I say people were excited. There were some mixed feelings about it because yes, people are excited that Z Energon is available in the Shannick store. But this is one of my talking points on this is that so you can only carry 3 million Z Energon at a time, right? So if you go in the Shannick store, Realistically speaking, and most people got a lot of Shanix. I only got just under 16K. So, I can go get a decent amount of Shanix, especially if you're trying to upgrade fast once you start to get in some of the higher levels when you earn Z Energon. If you're trying to go carry a bot to ability 11, you can say, ah, man, I can't wait. I'll just go ahead and go run the Shanix to go get some additional Z Energon so you don't have to wait. This is a good thing. I did get somebody in my DM and it was like, yeah, this is very expensive. And to them, my response to them, and I can't remember exactly what I said, but something to the effect of, nah, it is a little bit pricey, but you got to realize that everything that you can do with Z Energon at that cost, like for Z Energon, you got ability. Let's go find me a bot. Hopefully, I got a bot in here that I don't got an ability 11 on because I'm on test server, but they just ported in my main account. Let's see, who do I not have an ability 11 on? I don't know what level. So yeah, this will be a good one to use. So Scylla, I didn't have an ability on the live server. I don't have an ability 11 on. But when you start talking about sparks, let me go in there and get more spark. But you're spending a lot on. Actually, I don't got any spark in there either. I have to actually go get it from the playtest server, or get it from the store we have for it in the playtest server, I should say. But when you look at Z Energon and you look at that once you get to a certain level, you've got to use your defenses, all take some Z Energon. And you look at the fact that 750K for upgrades to ability 11 to make your bots better all use Z Energon. And then you look at this Shanix store and see Z Energon. Ultimately, it's a good thing. And the other thing that I don't think people think about as much is you can use your Z Energon to go buy XP, so now you can go level your bots faster. And I always like, and this is what I was telling my buddy that was complaining about the cost of it. At the same time, when I go do elimination mode and I go put together a team for elimination mode, I'm spending Shanix anyway playing elimination mode, and I still have to do the work. Now this team, because what most people do is they come in elimination mode, they go take their combiner, they might pick a zone they feel comfortable in, because ideally you only want to use one bot at a time. You don't, you want to try to, and so you're going to wind up, you can only run this thing for 15 minutes with this combiner. So for me, I might say I got a bot like Blot. I want to go get my XP for him. So I say I might just drop him and go straight to the HQ. And even though the combiners aren't supposed to be able to do it, I think some of them are actually still doing damage. But even if you don't, you might just want to clear the area out and just do your elimination mode like that. And that's how a lot of people are getting just tons and tons and tons of XP saved up because they did this elimination mode for so long. Now, for me, I don't like doing that. Like, it was one point in time when I was like, yeah, when I was a newer player and I didn't have many bots and I said, I got to work as hard as I can. Yeah, that was cool. I was like, I did elimination mode very hard every week for years. But now I'm just not at that point anymore where I want to just go grind out elimination mode, grind out regular farming, grind out, you know, wars are tougher. I don't want to. I don't want to do that all the time. So, all that being said, when you go into the store, and you only got to raid once every 2 weeks to go earn Shanix. This is an option that you can use to get a lot of stuff that's going to add a lot of value to you in the game. So I look at that as a real positive quality of life change. I hope to see more. But one thing I don't like about some of the quality of life changes is all of this stuff was, and that's the reason why I went back and showed you last week's newsletter, because some of the stuff is advertised, but some of this stuff isn't. And I feel like Space Ape's doing themselves disservice. Like, this just popped up in the store, and if I wasn't paying attention online, the app and Discord, I wouldn't have known anything about it. I like to find things out from official channels. I love for them to go in there. Like I said, I check the wiki regularly. They could have mentioned, well, they might have mentioned it in there by now, but they didn't say, hey, we made some wiki updates. They didn't put this in the newsletter that I saw. Now, let me know in the chat and on the comments if I missed it, but I never saw that. I think you got to make it obvious that, hey, we're going to be doing this stuff. I mean, people will dig around and they'll see it eventually, but advertise this stuff. Advertise this stuff. Let people know, hey, we want to do something to help you. And for the players that have never really had to deal with it before, let them know, hey, if you use this, you can get ability 11s. You can upgrade your base faster. You got to advertise this stuff, man. You can get XP. You got to let somebody know you're doing it. Like, this stuff just gets added and nobody says anything. And that's kind of wild to me. But ultimately, I got one more thing I want to talk about. And I want to talk about some ideas for the next legacy bot. So let's go ahead and get out of the store, and we're going to talk about uh, Cyclonus and his rework, and the Autobot version. Obviously, it's going to be Powerglide. So we don't really have anything to show, but I want to talk about what kind of plans there are. So let's go take a look at that back on the battlefield. Now, as many of you may already know, Cyclonus is getting ready for the Legacy batch rework, and the focus is really on him. I mean, obviously, the Autobot counterpart is Powerglide, but the focus here, because Cyclonus is such an iconic character in the lore, the focus has been on him. And I'll tell you, a few back in my early days as a content creator, so this was a few years ago, um, I made this video, and a lot of you remember, like, back in the day, I spent more time on the con highlight videos, and I always just took one random bot every week, and I made a video about them, and then I made a separate video during the week talking about news and stuff like that. And it was a fun time, and I still, from time to time, like to just dibble and dabble in and talking about lesser used bots. I still want to make a tournament. I just been trying to find the time to make a videos for the tournament, but I think I'm gonna be working on that soon, especially as the holidays roll around and I don't have as much work rolling in. But all that said, this is one of the bots that's looked at as like one of the worst bots in the game. So when I look at his stats, his damage, and I always like to go click on the damage so you can see the base damage. I mean, it's okay. It's not anything crazy. Guys know I always like to go do the old fracas test to see what he's like added, with an additional 32%. And like, keep in mind, I got this guy maxed out. You know, his damage is all right. We got bots that do 1.4k now, or 1200. So just just to see what's up, I got him private rank. I'll go give him his ranks, and well, I guess I had to go grab 5-star shards to be able to do it. So I'll do that while I'm talking. But just been regarded as a bad bot, and a lot of people are just like, look, man, that's a disservice to him because he's so iconic in the lore. So for me, I was like, man, what will it take to make this guy good? And before we even started having the conversation and playtest, uh, Dale hit me up and he was like, hey, I want to run an idea by you. What do you think about it? I'll tell you about that idea in a second because I want to actually go back to looking at this dude's stats. So even here, with him as a captain, he finally scratches the surface with that 1,200, um, you know, in that area. So, and then his health comes up from like 17k to like 19k. So, uh, a lot to be desired. We'll go add ability 11 to him. So his ability 11 is going to add 6 bombs. So he has 12. So let's do some quick math real quick. So if we had 12 bombs at 618 damage, that puts us at 7.4k, little over 7.4k. We'll add this in. So now he's going to do 18 bombs at 636. And that's going to put him about just under 11.5k. So not something, that's something I say is like completely awful. But far from good. You're not gonna just use his ability, and you're not destroying too much. So let's give him EO. You give him an enhanced ordnance, cool. So now he's at 18. 18 bombs at 805. That'll put him at like 14.5k. And I say all of this because even after doing all this to him, he's still regarded as a bad bot. So let's actually take a look at him in game. I'll take Acid Storm out. And, granted, this is only a 4-star, so I got to take that into account. But I'm going to take him in the, what is this, zone 16? Which is zone 16 on the playtest server could be a little bit lighter than on the actual server. So let's see. Let's look at some of the health on some of this stuff. So we got a missile launcher there. Level 7, so 51. Try to find something that's got some beef to it. Auto cannon. So I'll start off here. Let me go, because this is line damage on the current version. So on some easier bases, you can, hit multiple targets. Now the problem here is it's cool that he's doing line damage, but there's no guarantee that he's gonna hit that single target. You can see there I hit a mortar and an autocannon. I had to spam it again to actually clear it out. So you can hit multiple targets, but then, like, are you gonna use this in war? No, you're not gonna use it in war and like, actually, let's try it. We ain't got to talk about it. Let's do it. So I will use him in a warlike situation. I'll go pick on one of my playtest buddies and do a test. I'm tripping today. I got to find the right spot. All right, so I'll go against one of my teammates, Texas Hammer. Shout out to him. I'll go use his playtest base as an example. So here we go, good solid base like you would see in one of the wars. I'll add him back to the team and add some Prime League effects and see what kind of damage he does in this case. So common stuff you'll see this Vector Prime core on an MDS. So I'm going to target that and see what it does. So it takes most of it out. So if I use it again, now it's going to take it out. It's going to vector. I'm going to use it again after the vector. Still doesn't take it out. I'm going to use it again. And so this is part of the problem. And so I say all of that because one of the issues is just that it's not doing enough damage. So obviously it needs to get bumped up. But when Legacy projects first started, it was supposed to be something where we just give, you know, some simple increases, some damage increases, make bots so they're usable in the meta, so that you're not doing like I just did and spamming an ability 4 or 5 times to take out key defenses. And so, going back to what I was originally saying, Dale hit me up and he was like, "Hey, he got a question and he had an idea that he wanted to run for Cyclonus," and he was like, and the idea he came up, he said the ability would be called Galvatron's Command, and then it says drop a bomb that deals X amount of damage every 10 seconds during the battle. Gain Galvatron's Will that grants 10% ability damage every 10 seconds. If Galvatron is present during the battle, these effects are doubled. And so, at first, like the ability itself sounds really cool. So I'm breaking it down, and it says the bomb is going to deal some damage every 10 seconds. You're going to gain 10% permanent ability damage. So that's going to be, you start to look at something like that as like a air class version of Wild Rider and Blue Streak, essentially what it sounded like. So it sounded pretty cool, like something that you can use, and then as the battle goes on, you would get more. So we started talking about this stuff in playtest, and the first thing, and we got some really good testers in there, don't get me wrong. But one of the first comments that came out was like, well, I don't like the ties to, I don't like the ties to the movie, the 86 movie. So, and I was like, well, that's part of, and let me switch back over to Galvatron. I mean, excuse me, let me switch back over to Cyclonus, not Galvatron. See, that's probably why he didn't want us to tie it to Galvatron. So I said, well, what if we change the name to, because I don't like getting stuck on stuff like that. I like getting stuck on functionality. And, most of the time we talk about this stuff and we say, hey, we want stuff to be lore accurate. So when he used, and I was like, well, I don't like Galvatron's will per se, but I do like maybe the Unicron's will. And they said, no, that's still too close to the continuity of just the movie. And I said, well, I thought we wanted this stuff to be lore accurate. I don't want to be stuck on that. So for me, I was just like, all right. We started looking at a bunch of different ideas, and we started having some cool ideas. I think at one point we were talking about making it so it was single target and not in a line, so that all of these bombs would wind up going onto one target. And then that turns into a debate about, well, we've had plenty, we got plenty of one shot jets. And I was like, no, actually, we don't. Not anymore. We did at one point. But when the game got harder, the one shot jet just kind of became irrelevant. Combos became more of a thing. And, most of us adapted to it, but a lot of us didn't. And I, and I, and so then that became a debate piece on my part. And I was like, look, every time we go talk about this stuff in tests, he's like, no, it needs to be AoE, needs to be AoE, needs to be, and it's like, okay, areas are cool, but every bot can't be an area bot. But I do agree you got to balance the stuff out, right? So when I look at this, it kind of leaves me at a crossroads of what are we gonna do with something like that? So an idea came up that I actually liked, and let me see if I can find it again. So that well, actually, yeah, I think that was Dale's idea too. So then he made an idea of what if we made it so it was so cheap, but it just kept building on every time you used it. So once again, something similar to like a Blue Streak or a Wild Rider. And I said that would be cool. That actually would be kind of cool. But then folks was like, well then, but it is polarizing because I've always been one where I don't like spammable abilities. But if it's a really powerful ability like Wild Rider, when you look at this ability and it's a shot that does okay damage and does some area damage, and then as you continue to use it, you can use it and bump up the damage some. So they were saying, hey, we want to take something with Cyclonus, possibly make it like 1+1 and 1+0, but every time you use it, it gets stronger. And I said, yeah, that would be pretty cool. Um, but folks didn't like that idea. And then there was one idea where it was saying, hey, let's just make it do something relevant to the meta. So we started talking about, well, maybe if you can use Cosmic Rust, but then the argument becomes, well, it's Cyclonus. He's iconic character. We don't want to just make him another support bot. So then, and there was another idea, and I'm trying to think of what it was. So there's a lot of ideas that came out, and all of them just keep getting shot down. And I'm trying to figure out what we need to do with this dude. And right now, we kind of got a break because Dale's on vacation. But when he comes back next week, I imagine this is going to be one of his priorities after he plays a little bit of catch up. And I just don't know anymore. Like, oh, and the other thing that came up is that when you go look on the Autobot side, you know, one of the things that people really wanted to take advantage of was that for Powerglide, actually, I'm gonna click on him because for Powerglide, he is, he's supposed to be an A10 Warthog. Uh, Now, me personally, having served in the military, I personally got to work on A10 Warthog, so I do have an appreciation for them. I got to work on them while deployed in Iraq. So a lot of people's like, well, this is supposed to be something that is, this gonna go out there and tear some stuff up, man. Like, so I do understand wanting that from that aspect, but the focus, you know, Dale said he wanted the focus to be on Cyclonus. Cyclonus is an iconic character in the lore, not so much for Powerglide. Even though I always thought Powerglide was cool as a kid, but he wasn't just somebody. He was like, man, he's gonna just go out there and dominate. So what do you do? What do you do with a bot like Cyclonus to try to make him great? I think some great ideas came out, but we just gotta get to the point where we can take one of them and make them worthwhile. So once again, and you know what? I think I'm gonna make a Discord channel for this too, uh, just to see if anybody has any Cyclonus ideas. But if you got some, let me know in the chat. Let me know on Discord, and preferably let me know on Discord because those will be things that I can remember in one place and then have it consolidated and go share it with Space 8 because the line damage thing isn't working. I don't think it'll be I don't think it would be good to just bump up his damage. I mean, you could, but then one comment that came up about that is if we just bump up his damage, um, you know, could we make him like an air class, like Half Shell and Road Buster or something like that? We could, And honestly, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, SpaceX will make money off of it because it's a legacy bot. And after and people keep calling it a nerf. I mean, it was a bug fix. After his bug fix or whatever, I mean, we could use something that's capable of one shot and something. It should be something that can one shot tough defenses in the game. Just as long as like for example, right now I'm not charged. If I'm not charged in a regular battle, like I feel like I should be able to go up there and take out a shock tower and possibly an MDS. But you let me know, and I think I am going to call it a day as far as not a stream, but premiere video. But let me know what you think about any of this stuff, man. I'm making a lot of channels for content specific stuff, like game content specific stuff on Discord. So hit me up there, and I will catch you guys next go around. And I will also see you on the battlefield. Freezius out.